What are some of your favorite features in life?
Suffering
Wow,
is a
that's
feature.
yeah. You got a feature this morning, Darkness.
In suffering, yeah.
Yeah. We went to
Yeah.
the
Suffering was
SIP.
highly featured. Although
At
you
one
left
point,
me off the back blast.
I fixed it.
Okay. So,
You know,
cut me.
I want the the thing about SIP Dark was in a world of pain. He looked up to me in the midst of Jack Hell, and he said, "Why?" And I said, the S stands for suffer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Suffer in place.
I thought it was sunshine, but I was
No.
ill-advised.
Nope.
It's not.
Suffer
It's not.
in place.
It's not even reasonable to think that you could have sunshine there because it is a place the sun don't shine. You know where they say stick it to the sun don't shine?
Yeah.
The hot box.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's Jack
where
Hell.
you put it. You put it right in Jack Hell.
You got Jack Hell. Dark is not a fan of Jack Hell. Doesn't like it.
So they did this thing earlier in the week. It was you bear crawl to the 10 and do 2 burpees. Then you crawl bear back. Then you bear crawl to the 20, do 4 and crawl bear back. And do that all the way across. And let me tell you something. My shoulders hurt. And then yesterday it was all upper body, shoulders, Durkins, and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, my gosh. So showing up there today, I was pretty smoked. So picking that thing up again, I can't even. That hurt just now.
See that?
Ow!
Yeah.
Ow!
Are there any
50? Ouch!
are there any like when you're going through that kind of workout? Are there any? I don't know. Is there any sort of gear that you like to wear that might help reduce the suffering?
Yeah.
No, you can't reduce the suffering in the hot box.
I did.
You know, now that you say it, though,
I actually did, Plagu. I don't know about Dark because I'm fairly committed to this.
I
was wearing F3 socks.
You were wearing F3 shorts, socks, and shirt today.
I don't think shorts, but I thought those were F3 shorts.
I thought those were F3 shorts.
Yeah, I was decked out.
Maybe that was my problem. Maybe that's why the suffering was so great. I did not have mud gear socks on today.
Yeah,
I do not have a clean pair at present. I need to do laundry.
What? I got like 7 pairs, man.
Yeah. I'm just telling you, I don't do laundry. I go all the way to the end, and then I do the laundry. Although I have instituted a new personal practice, and because I was getting so annoyed with myself in that old habit of waiting until all the way to the end, and then you're like, I simply bought 4 baskets that hold roughly 1 load's worth in our washing machine. And they are according to, there's workout gear, lights, darks, right? Towels, that kind of stuff, right? Sheets, that sort of thing. And what I do is when any one of those baskets now is at capacity, it simply goes down in the laundry. That's it. Right. So I don't have to guess at like, well, is that really a lot? Like I purposefully measured and said, this is, and so now I don't have to think about it. I don't worry about it. I don't put a lot of, as they say in the corporate world, I don't burn a lot of calories on that one. So now when the basket's full, it just goes down that morning, and they always have clean clothes.
Nice. I love it. Well, I suppose even when they're suffering, life is too short to wear crappy socks.
You think?
If you're going to be a winner, you're going to need a coach.
Sharpening doesn't happen by accident. A blade left untouched will rust, and a man left unchallenged will stagnate. Every man needs friction, resistance, and a whetstone to grind away weakness and reveal his true edge. Welcome to the Whetstone, where we reject comfort, disrupt the status quo, and forge men ready for impact. Hosted by Dredd, Dark Helmet, and me, The Plague. This is where men step out of the drift and into acceleration, because iron sharpens iron, and no man sharpens alone.
Yep. Was this morning.
And we're back.
We are so much back.
We are back.
Back and better than ever.
Man, I'm loving the the Zebra Jockey content and the always the conversations with you guys. I think what as always, if guys have been listening since we started this, things kind of mesh together in in the way that they should, right? In sort of the way that life is. But you've got these chapters here, and as I was looking at this, so we've kind of covered chaos, we've covered flow, but we've also kind of covered. So chapter 3 is edge, and then chapter 4
we've touched on many
razors. Yeah, we kind of have touched on.
We mentioned passivity. We've mentioned output. Yeah, we've mentioned a number of these because they all are related.
Right.
Yeah. As you're thinking about edge, I think we've talked about edge travelers, right? Is there, I don't know, as I was reading through the edge article, kind of preparing, I was wondering, like, is there an edge that the zebra jockey needs to be aware of, or is that a preparedness thing, or I don't know, talk to me a little bit about this edge concept. Is it similar to edge traveler?
Edge just describes a certain type of controller, or a certain thing that a controller does, which is to always try to get to the edge of everything. I have a lot of edge traveler clients, not a lot, it's about 10%. And so I tell them, explain to them, this is the process, this is the way litigation works, and the best way to put pressure on the other side and get a case settled. If you can't get it settled, go to trial or whatever. And clients generally have this conversation, nod their heads. For them, it's the first, second, maybe third time they've had it. Most people don't find themselves in more than that, unless they're in-house counsel, in which case we don't have that conversation at all because they already know. But for most people, that's not something that happens much in their life. 90% of people go back and they say, okay, well, I guess he's doing what he's supposed to do. And, they ask questions if they don't understand. At 10%, maybe not even that much, but some percentage of clients, they look it up for themselves. And they start asking me questions like, could we do this or could we do that? Now, if I thought it was a good idea, I already would have told them. But I didn't talk about it or tell them it's a good idea because I don't think it's a good idea. And they look it up on ChatGPT or whatever.
I was going to say, is the number growing now that the information continues to be more accessible?
Actually, it's not.
Oh,
it's just that percentage of people.
They just use a different tool now.
Right. So, for instance, my accountant sends me my tax return and I sign it. Yeah. And he, and if after the fact I found out that he's not deducting something he should, I might ask him about it. But before the fact, no. I mean, if he asks me for information, I give it to him. I don't say, should we FIFO or LIFO or whatever. He's accountant. If my doctor prescribes something, I go to the doctor. It's such a rare thing, but if I did, and the doctor told me whatever, I'm unlikely to Google that or whatever to find out. Unlikely, because I'd rather just rely on the guy, and I know that whatever kind of superficial information I could get would not help me. Right? Probably not. Now, so that percentage of people, I don't think is increasing. What's increasing is their access to information to drive them crazy. So they would also have the tendency to think that there's magic bullets out there that would circumvent the process. Well, yeah, you told me about all these expensive legal things we have to do to, get this dispute resolved. But I think that this company or person, whatever, would be really, we could get them to settle if they thought we were going to report them to the Better Business Bureau. And I'd say, if you do it and it works, it'll be the first time I've ever seen it work. Generally, it just makes them mad. Well, how do you know that? I said, I don't know it. I'm just telling you, having walked this path for 30 years, that this is the way it is. Now, I'm not going to ignore something that I've never thought of just because I've never thought of it. Right. So, once in a while when somebody suggests something to me that I'm like, I listen to that because I'm concerned that I've missed the boat somewhere. I don't know all the answers. But if I already know, I'm like, that's a pretty expensive thing to do. There's not a lot of juice, that's a lot of squeeze, little juice, trying to control your fees, that kind of thing. Try to talk them out of it. But some percentage of clients that just, they look it up and they say, you can make a motion to continue a hearing. I saw it on chat. I said, you can, but it's probably not going to be granted. And why do we want to do that? Tell me why you want us to do, like, what they're trying to do is get to the edge. They're trying to get to the edge and get around the process because they think there's another way. They're trying to control it themselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, I have a problem with the word expert, not what an expert is, but how it's used. Generally by people that self-proclaim expertise as a tool or a weapon to try to control other people. However, if there was a thing or two that I would say I kind of am an expert in, one would be, litigation.
The law.
Litigation.
Yeah.
Well, not the law.
Oh, no, fair. Good point. Yeah,
not the law, but there's a sliver of the law that I would say I know a lot about this, and I know a lot about it because I've walked that trail many times, stubbed my toe, dark, right.
But the thing you say too, like you said, like your doctor or your accountant or whatever, and guys might be tempted to go, well, aren't those experts? But the problem that
I think they are.
They are. But I would say, but don't you preach against listening to experts? But I think what guys miss is it's distant experts who have little to no knowledge of the situation where you are that are the problem. Guys who claim themselves as experts, who may or may not be experts. My favorite thing in the whole world is when I see this 25-year-old kid, man, woman, doesn't really matter, 25-year-old kid who went through something that they perceive as very difficult, and then come out the other end and they're like, I've decided to be a life coach.
Yeah.
I think we're good. Like, you might be a kid coach,
I'm not
somebody else's life.
I'm not
coaching my life.
I'm not against the idea, but
I'm against it.
I mean,
20, no offense.
This is how I view it. I view expertise. I view the expert in the same lens I view it through the law, which we have a specific rule about an expert witness. So every other witness only can testify from his own perceptions, what he saw, what he heard, what he smelled, what he thought. That's it. He's restricted to that. He can issue an opinion, which is not factual testimony, if it's within the cognizance of a layman. In your opinion, was it dark out, was it light out, something like that, right? Now, an expert opinion is different because it requires someone to be qualified in a field that requires special expertise, training, education, something, and it requires testimony that would be outside of the experience or cognizance of your average lay juror. In other words, you're helping the juror. So to me, that's what an expert is. And when somebody tenders an expert to the court, the first thing you do is test his qualifications, his bona fides. So you're tendering, you say, sir, educational background, training, and so you establish a foundation for the fact, and you say, Judge, I tender Mr. Jones as an expert in structural engineering. He's got an engineering license. He's been practicing there about, okay, whatever, right? That's an expert, right? And then you say, well, sir, what were you asked to do? I was asked to render an opinion as to whether or not the design of this building was structurally sound. And what did you do to do so? I studied the plans, blah, blah, blah. And now, based on all that, do you have an opinion as to whether or not it was designed properly? I do. And could you tell the jury what that opinion is? Objection. Judge says, no, adequate foundation. I'm going to let him do it. In my opinion, it was not. It was not designed properly. Okay. That's an expert. In my mind. That's an expert. Right. Now, there are fields of expertise that simply don't exist. This would be what you're saying, Darkness. The life coach. Is that something outside of the cognizance of the layman? I don't know. My thinking is no. I'd have to hear the foundation, right? How were you trained? Right. So, okay. Now, the second thing is, if it is an actual field of expertise, do you have the foundational requirements to be an expert in that such that it would be helpful to anyone? That's what you're just talking about, Dark.
Yeah.
Some 25-year-old kid, and a kid could be 25 and up, young guy who
there's
says,
always an exception,
I took a shake and bake course,
Right.
Pfeiffer University online, and now, okay.
Even that I might give a little bit more to. I'm saying the kid who's like, I overcame something, and then now I feel like because I overcame this small thing, I have this broad knowledge of how to help everyone in every aspect of their life. And I
That's
just
the
kind of go,
feeling. That's the feelings expert. Like I feel
Yeah, yeah.
really strong. You know,
Yeah.
Bob feels really strong. Like Greta Thunberg feels really strongly about the environment, so we
climate,
should
yeah,
listen to her.
yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
So, you know, that's not an expert at all.
But she said, "How dare you?"
But the thing the thing I'm usually pushing back, if you listen to me on, is
Yeah.
not so much whether or not the field of expertise exists, not so much
Right.
whether or not this guy is the foundation to speak authoritatively within it. It's that this guy has extended his expertise outside of his field in a manner to try to control you. And this is the Jim Cantori thing.
Yeah.
You are an expert at reading the barometer. I am never, ever
No.
going
Yeah,
to push back Jim on the fact that you can read the barometer and the Doppler. You are a meteorologist. I am not. If you say, I think the weather in Charlotte tomorrow is going to be this,
Take
I
your
will
word for it.
accept that opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But once you wander out of that and start pontificating on whether or not I should use an umbrella, I'm not interested in that. But because you're not an expert on my decision making about how to adapt, I'm an adapter. I will figure out how to adapt to the weather in the way that I will do so.
And
You
accept
are
my
not
consequences as they come.
accept my consequences. Cantori is not an expert on me or you or anyone else.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why these guys drape themselves in this extended expertise, like the extended warranty, you want the 10-year warranty on that phone? The reason why they do that is control.
Yeah.
That's why I use Cantori as the example, because he wants to control when people depart their homes in the face
During
of
the
foul
hurricane,
weather.
yeah.
And I'm sorry, bud, you're just gonna have to resist that control impulse. I get it. You're just gonna have to resist it.
Yeah.
Or I'll resist it for you by saying, not gonna listen to that.
I love
Not gonna listen.
in this Edge article, you have a definition of control, right? So control is the perceived power to determine events and direct the actions of others towards specified outcomes. You know, so I think just, but when I read that, a question that comes to mind, and I feel like we've talked about this before, but remind me the difference between control and influence, because sometimes I think, is it that you're trying to get others to the outcome they want to get to, or that's advantageous, and not just trying to influence them to an outcome that I want them to get to? Is that the difference, or how do we differentiate between control and influence?
So it's not the it's not where the outcome comes from. Yeah, or it's what I think could be, or what I think could be for you. It's how I get you to move to it.
Okay.
So influence is igniting a powerful desire for movement in another man. Like you're at the status quo, and it could be the thing you tell me. Dark and I actually talked about this morning. You come in and you describe a status quo to me. You talk about one of his guys. You describe a status quo that you find untenable or undesirable. You don't like it. We talked about the suggestion box. You have a suggestion box, but it's full of cards that say
I've
the
never
same
opened
thing.
it. Yeah.
It's same thing, right? Like this status quo is untenable. I've heard you say it 1,000 times. And Dark said he said to his guy, "What are you going to do about it?" So because you got to shake them up a little bit. What are you going to do about it? So it could be you come in and tell me, for instance, that you don't like your job anymore, and you don't want to work there anymore. And then you tell me the next week, and you tell me, and I'm say, okay, oh, hang on. Is this status quo for you untenable? Like you've gotten to the point where you don't want to be there anymore? Then what is it that you think you could do to change that? Like it usually, right? What would you change it? And Dark and I actually had one of these, right? In the hoodie one day.
Oh yeah.
And I said,
It was deep.
Let me help you visualize your place of advantage. Where is it that you want to go? Because a lot of times when a guy is talking about a status quo and he doesn't like it, he only has the vaguest idea of the better place. So you get him to describe the better place, and then you get him to compare and contrast them. Say, why is it better? Why do you think that? Now, let's talk about the price to be paid for movement. because movement ain't free. Are you willing to pay it? He says, I believe I am. I want to pray about it or whatever. Say, all right. You've decided that this place is better. The status quo is untenable. You're willing to pay the price of movement, and you have a clear understanding of what it is. Now, what's the first waypoint? What's the first step you're going to make? He tells you. Comes back the next week. I'm like, did you get to that waypoint? No. Influence now kicks in. Right? Now kicks in. Like, well, brother, you told me that was important to you, right? Don't you want that? Tell me the obstacles that are in your way.
Yeah,
He
I'll usually go
describes-
like, where did you
Right.
get?
He describes he describes an obstacle that he sees as a mountain, and I help him recast it as a molehill that he is perfectly able to cross over. He's just not used to movement. Everything I've just described to you, I put in the category of influence. Now, it could be not a thing that's in his suggestion box, but in my suggestion box. In other words, I'm saying, hey, I think this is an advantageous place for you or an organization. I'm trying to influence the organization. And in this case, it is my selected place of advantage. Well, if you go back to F3 kind of 101, right? That's the visualization of the better place. V of vape. Articulation, now I've described it, right? Now it's persuasion. I persuade you to initiate first movement. So you get used to moving. You release your little cling on the status quo. You realize movement hurts a little bit. And then finally, exhortation, that's keeping you moving through incentivizing the breach of obstacles. All of that comes under the heading of influence, regardless of whose suggestion box the place of advantage comes from. Here's the difference between that and what the controller does. Read that definition again, because I want to make sure, because I don't have it right in front of me.
Yeah, you got control as a perceived power to determine events and direct the actions of others towards specific outcomes.
Right. So specific outcome completely in the mind of the controller, right? He perceives he has the power to make you go there, direct events, not to influence you, to say, isn't this a place you want to go? How can I help you get there? But this is a place you must go. And I'm going to rely
Because
on
I think it's the right place.
I think it's the right thing. It's not where you could be. It's where I say you should be, which in my mind are two completely different things.
Yeah.
I, as a controller, am exacerbated by my life problem, my ultimate life problem. And I'm going to try to force you to do it using either or both chicanery, I'll lie to you, and compulsion, I'll force you, the two C's. That's what I'm going to do. And that's where all statism comes from. It's where I think, and it could be altruistic, there's an aspect of statism that is coarsely self-served. It's a freaking racket, but there are people out there, and I think they are.
I think that they really do believe that is the best way.
They really do believe it.
Yeah.
Really do believe it. They really do believe it. They really do. There are good-hearted people out there, goodish-hearted people out there that really do believe in 12 years the world's going to burn up. I mean, they say it every 12 years, but
Yes.
I mean, they really believe it. They're
I
deluded.
did the math a little wrong.
Right. And they are willing to keep saying that. Now, there's also some segment of that population that doesn't believe it at all or doesn't really care if it's true, but they know they can make some money out of it. That's the hustle side of it. From our perspective as adapters, as liberals, none of that really matters, because it doesn't matter if you're motivated by greed or motivated by misplaced goodism. The result is the same, as you're going to try to force me to do something and lie to me. And in both cases, I'm going to resist that because I have agency and I refuse to give it up.
But it's for the greater good.
It's for the greater good. So back to the controller, regardless of his motivations, and I think that most people are generally motivated by some form of twisted altruism, but they still are going to try to force you to that place of good that they have defined. That they're the place you should be, and they are going to seek more and more power and authority to try to get it done. And whatever quantum of power and authority that they have that fails to achieve it, they're simply going to say, when confronted with their failure, if I just had a little more power. That's where the guy says communism didn't fail. They just didn't do it right. They just didn't do it.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it different.
We're going to do it different next time. And that's the big difference between control and influence. Stark, right?
Yeah.
Stark difference. Now, note, it's a lot easier and more accomplishable in the short run to use control to initiate movement than it is persuasion.
Mm.
Persuasion takes skill and patience. Go ahead, Tom.
I would say, and depending on the time frame that you have, right? Sometimes, like when my kid is falling off of a, or like walking toward the edge of a thing, like I have to control that if I want to keep them from harming themselves or something like that, right? But that's actual danger, right?
That's exigent circumstances.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm getting to.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that if there really is a thing, the problem is that people want that. It's like, that's actually an exigent circumstance. That's actually a thing where there actually is danger and there actually is a short-term time frame to get, adjusting that behavior, or we're going to have a problem, right?
Yep.
The problem is that people want it to come faster than it is designed to, or than it is even reasonable to. And so therefore they go, well, I want it faster. Again, kind of a my will, your will, right? So that's why I will go ahead and resort to control, and I'll force you, and I'll beat you, and I don't know, hypothetically, like, let's just say, like, we'll stick you in a little box in rows of other boxes to keep you from spreading a virus. Something like that. Like maybe in a Chinese place, something like that,
Yeah.
Like
that would be really
because
odd.
they believe that there's this short-term ability, like
exigent. So
Yeah.
they'll
create one if they have to, is my point.
Right. The making permanent what is exigent is in the toolbox of the controller.
Mm-hmm.
So if in COVID this happened, when it first happened, it was chaos, and I get it. I didn't know for sure.
Nobody knew.
And I didn't claim I did. And in the short term, when we didn't know, having the executive branch of the government employ its emergency powers to compel certain actions by the populace, to me, was constitutionally justified. But the emergency powers do not extend past the point of the exigent circumstance. So a week,
2 weeks to control the spread.
Right.
That's one thing.
Right. Now,
2 years to control the people.
Right.
Different. Yeah.
Once that expired, now you got to go to the legislative branch and say, all right, pass a bill, go back to the sign the bill, test it in the judiciary. They try to short circuit that. The governance at all levels and in both parties try to edge travel around the constitutional process through the division of powers, through the three branches of government. And they tried to do it. They tried to do it because they'll always try to do it if you let them. And if you let them, that becomes the new status quo.
Precedent, right. Baby.
Yeah, that's the new status quo. And for those out there that are pessimistic about our Constitution and about our governance,
shame on you.
It was pushed to the edge by the edge travelers, but it held. It held. So the greatest example of that is the federal executive branch tried to force people to take the COVID vaccine against their will by invoking OSHA regulations to do so. And it was ill-fitted, and it was improper, and it was ultimately struck down by the Supreme Court in the exact way that it should be.
Mm.
So the system held, the dike held, but it was a close-run thing. And the executive branch of the governance at all levels tried its mightiest to quell dissent, to demonize dissent and voices speaking otherwise, even voices who weren't saying, I disagree that COVID is emergency. I'm simply standing for the constitutional obligations of due process that you have to adhere to. I'm talking about due process.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to blast through those voices, but there were enough of them that the dike held. But it was, in my opinion, as a lawyer, as a lawyer's been doing it for a long time, it was a close run thing. It got close. The edge travelers almost got around the edge of the process. They almost did.
And so if you go ahead.
I didn't have another thing.
No,
I thought that was. I
Plague
thought that
took a breath.
That sounded so good to me.
It
that
was
I was
good.
Like,
It was really
I'm gonna
good.
leave it
That's
there.
why I didn't want to add to it because I thought Plague had something. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it was really good. It makes me wonder. So there are times where I'll call them standards. Maybe that's not the right word, but where we've created standards or process because we know they provide advantage. And so, like, I'm thinking of like in the example you gave, or like at work, right? Like we have performance standards, and when somebody's below those standards, we try to influence them, and sometimes influence doesn't work, and then we have to use like corrective action, or depending on how severe, So, like, is that like talk me through that? Is that like, so ideally influence works, but if I'm not great at it, or I'm still working on persuading people, like,
Do
I don't know
better.
how to do better. So or is that a situation where like, I have to
So now
exercise control?
you're getting more towards um, the fourth quadrant of the Q source, uh, which is part of this is accountability, right? So that's the A in team.
Yeah.
Trust, equipping, accountability, missionality. So accountability is setting and maintaining high standards within the team.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be done. So Q has to do that, and he has to increase the standards, hopefully, right? Both in nursing and in the law, we call that standard of care.
Mm-hmm.
And standard of care sometimes is explicit, written down, in our is codified. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it exists in the minds of actually an expert. So an expert, if you bring a legal malpractice case or a malpractice claim against any professional, you have to establish the standard of care for that profession. It's not mere negligence, right?
Right.
Which is just what would a reasonable person do in this circumstance? It's what would an attorney practicing in this area of the law, what would he do? What is the standard
what
of
I
care?
do in that circumstance versus what you would do, very different.
Totally
because I
different,
don't know
right?
anything. Yeah.
Right. So an attorney says, for instance, you don't prepare your client for deposition. He goes in a deposition, does horribly, and you didn't prepare him. And he ultimately sues you for that. And then you bring in an experienced litigator and establish him as an expert in litigation, say, is the prevailing standard of care that you would prepare your client for deposition? My response to that would be yes.
Hmm.
And
Is
if
that
you
written
fail
down
to
anywhere? Yeah, you can fight about it, right? But
I can't write down most of this stuff.
Right.
And I mean, I defended some nurses over time who were accused of violating the standard of care by the nursing board in North Carolina. And I'll tell you what, I defended many professionals in different boards, but ain't nobody meaner than the nurses. You go to Raleigh and defend the nursing board, they are out for absolute blood. Absolute blood. There's no grace there whatsoever. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, to kind of flip the burden of proof. The burden of proof is usually on the person asserting the claim. But it's like the nurse is like, prove to us that you're not a drug addict who filched oxy out of it. And a lot of these cases are drug involved because nurses, I think, get burnt out and, dip into they have access to drugs, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm trying to remember like the orders that a doctor would put on the clipboard. I forget what that's called, whether or not they adhere to them properly, whatever. But I'll tell you what, man, those kind of standards, that standard of care within the nursing practice, and maybe the reason for that is you talk about life and death. Really, with lawyers, we're really not talking about life and death for the most part. Maybe because a nurse, if she's not on her game, his game,
sense.
that we're talking about life and death, maybe it needs to be that way. So in my mind, that's a separate, although related issue than control of that. You're not being a controller if you say to someone working in a professional field or any field, really, this is the standard of care or this is the standard applicable to that, and you have not met it.
Yeah.
You have not met it, and you need to meet it.
Is that because those standards were likely created to move the team or the organization to advantage? I'm trying part of the team,
yes,
the motive.
So they're about mission accomplishment.
Yeah.
So the standards that apply within any group, team, organization, or community, are designed to move the group to advantage. So if you say in a community, okay, I'll try to pick some low hanging fruit. That you have a designated trash day. So in my neighborhood, I think it's Wednesday. Designated, that's when we roll our trash cans out to the curb. The pick, and then the city comes and
Because the
picks
city
it up.
comes and gets it. Yeah.
In Charlotte, we have city trash
Yeah.
pickup.
Yeah.
So that's a standard, right? If you take your trash and you don't put it in the bin that the city issues you, we have these rolling bins,
Mhm.
and you just dump it in your front, like near the driveway.
Yeah.
Okay, you haven't met the standard. The city's gonna fine you, right? Gonna give you a citation because that trash that goes there will vermin. It'll attract vermin. It will stink. It'll be a health hazard. That's an important standard for the betterment of the community.
Mm.
And anyone who's been DR to a developing nation knows that that's a standard that generally don't have.
Mhm.
They just dump it right in the river, man.
They dump
Leave it
it
on the side of the road.
What is ubiquitous in every developing nation I've ever been to, whether in the army or on a church mission, they have just like a place where everybody throws their trash whenever they want. It's just a thing. I mean, it's really kind of amazing.
It's also prevalent in failing cities.
Okay, so when you see a city start to decelerate, and the trash pickup becomes spotty, like they're not doing it regularly or they're not doing it thoroughly, some people start to violate the standard, and
no one
the city doesn't cite them. It's not enforced. You're right. It's a dead giveaway that a city is starting to fail. It's starting to move backwards. Now, alongside that, which is interesting point, there's no rule. There might be, but that you on Wednesday, once the city comes and takes your garbage, that you should take your cans back to where they go immediately or within an hour or two.
Yeah. Now, like our HOA demands that of us.
HOA would have a standard, right?
Yeah.
HOA might have that standard. Now, my neighborhood is not subject to an HOA that has any authority, so the HOA can't make you do that. However, if you continue to do that in my neighborhood, somebody's probably going to talk to you. Somebody's probably going to talk to you because it is violating
the generally accepted community
mores. Right. And remember, when we talk about community, there's no mission. It's just that we live in close proximity for our betterment, right? And as long as you don't violate the law and the general mores of the community, then you've done everything you need. You don't have to actually do anything, right? You don't have to accomplish a mission, right? You're not going to go to your neighbor and say, look, I'm going to need you to step it up. We got a community mission here. Or that. You're not going to do that, right? But you might go to your neighbor and say, look, Bob, I don't mean to be a jerk, but you're leaving your garbage thing out to Saturday, and it's a narrow street and it looks bad, and my dog is peeing on it, and could you be a good dude? And also one thing I noticed in my neighborhood, if you don't do it, somebody starts doing it for you.
I was just going to say,
right.
Yeah.
And and I say all this, and if you happen to live in my neighborhood, you're the worst offender, and I am. But that's a little bit of some dynamic shame goading, right?
Yeah.
To have somebody do it for you. It's like somebody mowing your lawn, right? So these are things that are part of influence, though, right? These are things that are like, I'm not trying to force you to do it. I want to influence you to do it with a combination of carrots and sticks. It's like, hey man, do the right thing. It's like, don't you want to be in good stead? Don't you want everybody to like you? That kind of thing. Or, I'm going to do it for you and make you feel a little like I'm kind of a jerk. I made my neighbor do this. And in this way, everything kind of works out, and it's different for there's neighborhoods in Charlotte you go to, and they do have a little bit of trash sitting around. There are some trash cans, and that neighborhood is where it is. It is, right? And I mean, it all kind of depends. Obviously, the community doesn't value it.
Yeah.
If it did, they'd do something about it.
And on the other end of that, there are communities where and I keep a pretty good standard around my house, lawn cut, garbage up, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I don't have, like, my lawn is not, the luscious, most beautiful
Right.
thing that has ever, whatever. And there are communities where you don't even get to do your own lawn care.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're not
And
even
if you
allowed.
move there, Now,
Yes, but
I won't personally live
I
in
wouldn't.
an HOA governed community.
Yeah.
And I've had 100 cases with HOAs over the years, and I just don't want to live like that. I mean, but also, I don't care if my neighbor, flies a pride flag or what on his yard. I pick something I don't agree with.
Yeah.
On his yard, that I have pretty low standard as what I want my neighbor to do, and in return and in consideration of that, I want to be able to jam a shovel flag into my yard on 4th of July and not have the
Somebody
HOA come scurrying around and saying,
We
a
don't do
flag can be-
flags here.
well, we
Yeah.
can do flags, but it has to be on a. I don't want.
Yeah.
I don't want to live like that.
Yeah.
And as an adapter, I am and a liberal. I want to live in a community, and I get to choose that does not seek control that way. And you get to choose. You get to choose in a free and open society where you want to live. And if you want to live in a neighborhood where there's 3 colors that you can paint your house, and that's it, fine.
Do it.
Right. And if you want to paint your house pink, go live in a neighborhood that lets you do that. But your neighborhood, your next door neighbor might paint his lavender.
Yeah.
And you might not like it. Right. You might not like it. And maybe I'm talking myself into controllers and adapters. Sometimes living cheek by jowl is a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
But I actually think between the two of them, adapters tend to help controllers lighten up a little bit. And
if they're open to it.
Controllers, and I've said it many times, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'd rather be sorry than safe.
Sorry than safe. Yeah.
I'm on kind of the reckless side, and being around people with a little bit of a control bent to them is actually good to me. Good for me.
Dude, that's why I love being married to my wife, because my wife has a very, I think, ridiculously, but a very healthy respect for rules. And she really, and now she will admit, she goes, look, you have, really loosened me up from when we first got married 25 years ago. Right. And I will admit and say, there's probably some things that I, relent on now and go, all right, yeah, we should probably follow that rule, or whatever, that I left to myself. There's not a chance, right? But you have to have that kind of tension. So because I think that's an important distinction to make. I don't think Dredd would say this, and I know I wouldn't say it either, right? I don't fault a guy for how he perceives the world and how he feels about edge and flow and control and liberty.
Right.
Like some guys are just baked like that. And candidly, I want those guys building my bridges.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The guy. Yeah, for sure.
I would like a high control, because if I was building the bridge, I'd be like, meh.
Looks good.
Every man for himself. We threw down some logs. Best of luck. Like
I'm not
this
driving
wouldn't
on
work,
that bridge.
right? So I kind of want a guy with some high control tendencies in this world. I need them, and I want them. And in fact, I take some of those guys and I put them on the shared leadership team with me.
Yeah,
because he's got to keep that, keep me from
So
going off in left
I
field.
want to adopt that, but I want to modify a little bit.
Yeah.
I just want to feather the edges a little bit.
Yeah.
I think what we're not talking about a guy who's full blown control status guy. That guy, we can't deal with that guy.
But that's because he became a toxic, right?
We got to resist him. I think the guy you're talking about is a guy who's by nature.
That's what I'm saying.
More,
those guys
right.
That's his nature.
More, right. So like, we're talking about being alongside guys like that who are the controller who is cognizant of his control impulse and recognizes your right to be an adapter.
Yeah.
That
if you
guy,
draw the curve,
right.
He's the guy, two standard deviations maybe on the control side, but he ain't in that weird tip that's like, I'm going to come, bang your door down, right? That's not what I'm talking about. But the reason I say this is because a lot of guys hear these things, and then so this is self-preservation, all right? I'll just admit it. Then I get some kind of text or email or something that says like, I really don't like the way you maligned people who have these sort of, and I'm like,
Yeah.
So I'm kind of saying it for guys to understand too, though, like, it's not that you should, that any impulse toward controlling something is evil and we're saying you're terrible or what. We're not aurists over here, by the way. So we're not going to say that kind of thing anyhow. But also I think it's useful to recognize how that tendency, or how
It's
that,
not unrestrained.
that's what I was saying, how that tendency has a tendency to walk toward, a real problematic place real fast.
Right.
And so you have to be very, very diligent in making sure. And that's why I say, I put him on the team with me, because I'll go off in left field. We'll do some crazy stuff.
Sure.
I got to be real careful. So I make sure I have, people around there like, maybe not. Right. Yeah. So yeah,
I know from my history as a recovering controller, I think what I've learned is I think I used to think like, oh, I'm good at planning and organization, and so therefore I must control, but what I've learned though is that I can both, I can be good at those things and still allow for, the outcome to be controlled by ultimately God or the team or whatever. And one of the things that you kind of reference at the end of the article, I wonder if you could dive in a little bit more, because you use this term recognizable commands. If I'm patient enough to wait for them. And when I first read the story in here, honestly, I'm like,
that's the dog thing, right?
Yeah, well, so
it doesn't say here. It's not talking specifically about dogs, but yes.
Yeah, I think it's referencing that maybe, but because in my mind, when I'm reading this story, essentially you're with a buddy, you're going to catch a flight. He finds an earlier flight and you don't take it. And in my mind, I'm like,
I would never take the earlier flight. That might be the one that crashes.
Yeah. But in my mind, I'm like an efficiency guru too. So I want to do the thing that's going to save me time. But
the recognizable command is a reference back to the first chapter of Chaos, which is the dog story. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
What I'll just read it to you since you don't have to sit in front of you. I happen to. It says, because I'm a flow traveler, I believe all those hours chance things I've lost going with the flow are balanced out by the hours I've gained not trying to get to the edge, which ironically is the harder path to take. Or maybe they aren't. Either way, that determination has nothing to do with me. It belongs to the one who provides me with recognizable commands if I can be patient enough to wait for them.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm talking about God being spirit-led rather than man-led, right?
Yeah.
Like not relying on my own understanding, but relying on...
Don't drink the wine of violence.
Right. That's what we're talking about today. That's what we're talking about today. Don't eat the bread from Nineveh's kitchen.
Don't eat Nineveh's kitchen.
Yeah. So I do think that unrestrained, the control impulse blocks out faith, because you become self-reliant. You become man-reliant.
Yep.
And I'm getting a little too much sun there. And because of that, it blocks out the recognizable command. So I don't know if we talked about this before. The whole thing was Snoop, our dog guy.
Yeah.
I noticed we were rocking. Guys were bringing dogs, and when we would get the COT, the dogs are sitting there like they're quiet,
waiting for something. Yeah.
They're waiting. So we're praying, and they were sitting there, and I was like, I asked him, but what do you think they're thinking? I said, is it possible that they're like praying? Kind of. He's like, nah. He goes, they're just waiting for a recognizable command. They're reacting to what their master is doing and waiting for a recognizable command. And I adopted that, like, first of all, during a workout, and a guy would be using off-brand calls, and I wouldn't respond to him.
Exercise position.
So so if a guy doesn't say recover, we're doing Merc and he doesn't say recover, and he says stand up, or he just gets up, I just stay in the. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm waiting for a recognizable command." Or if they say next exercise is the Merc and your starting position, you're in it. I'm like, that. There's no such thing. I can't recognize that command. So I won't do it. Right. So in terms of the zebra jockey, it's like I'm trying not to resist the commands of my own flesh, my own desire to take control of my life, and wait for the recognizable commands that come from the Sky Q. He tells me what to do. He tells me when to move. He tells me if I get to a crossroads, which way to go. And those recognizable commands, as a flow traveler, are far simpler. The edge traveler, constant. What
And
should I do
just
next?
complicates
Right.
it. Yeah.
I thought it was so beautiful when we were sitting in Alto. We were getting ready to come back from F3 ski. Big snowstorm hits Charlotte. Of course, a bunch of Type A guys. Well, I got a trial on Monday. Like, we got a flight on Sunday. Everybody's like, there were guys that were going out and buying 5 different plane tickets, trying to figure out where the plane's coming from. Was it, is this, and renting a car, driving to Denver? It was wild, all this machination these guys were going through to try to get to the edge and make sure you get back. And then we went to the airport. When we finally went to the airport, our flight was on time after like a 30 minutes later, whatever. Get to the airport, and F3's Holtz walks up to me and says, he wasn't even on the trip. And he goes and he says, so a bunch of flow travelers just taking the flight. I was like, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what it is. Because the weather was going to weather. Cantori notwithstanding, the weather was going to weather. And we were going to get back to Charlotte when the heck we got back. So funny. What was that, 2 weeks ago? It's 72 degrees out here.
Yeah,
just the weather is the most obvious example of this sheep and the goats between flow and edge travelers. The airport is one way, the weather. Right down the middle of the continuum of edge and flow travelers are the people that think man can control the weather. That's just like a weather machine. But it's good to do it. It is what it is. It is what it is. The edge traveler, absolutely controller, wants to change the weather or restrain the weather, whatever. And the flow traveler adapter is like, I'll just go buy an umbrella, man.
Stand in the rain and accept my own consequences. It doesn't really matter.
Right. Stand in the rain and identify that is a little bit of suffering that'll make you more durable anyway. Right. So I guess it's all kind of coming together in one crazy whack job philosophy that should never be repeated. And here we are podcasting it. Dark.
Yes, sir.
We shouldn't do it, man.
We shouldn't do it.
We shouldn't do it.
It's a terrible idea.
It's
what
terrible.
Time you want me to show up?
It's terrible. It's horrible.
It's terrible.
Horrible.
Yeah. This is normally where Plague would say something like,
he's trying to poke you into saying, right.
Or how about this? Tune in next time when you'll hear the Plague say.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting to me, just the number of years that I have spent trying to control, like being a controller, and so just as I'm hearing you unravel a lot of this stuff, I think it's just and I was living a double, triple life. I was trying to manage lies that I was using to control perceptions and outcomes, and so I think it's your comment about controllers having a hard time with faith, because I really was the center of the world. I sort of thought I'm the one that makes decisions, that controls the outcomes. And so therefore, so that, I'm just,
Isn't that an AA thing? Like, what's the first step? I can't remember.
But yeah, it's like,
I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's like,
yeah,
my life is unmanageable and I can't control it, something like that.
Yeah, surrender to essentially a power
Right.
greater than yourself,
Like,
right? I mean,
you're recognizing that you are under the control of your addiction.
right.
I think.
Yep.
Stop me when I paraphrase this past in my own brain, but you're recognizing that your addiction is actually has control over you, and you think you're in control of your life, but you don't. You don't have control of your life. Your addiction does, and all
Right.
your half measures avail nothing. Like every AA guy I've ever talked to is like, oh yeah, you say, well, I'll only drink beer, or I'll only drink on Friday and Saturday. None of that stuff works because you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
There's something it's outside of your control, and the exhaustion of all the lies and all the failed attempts and all the broken promises finally brings you to your knees, and you say, all right, higher power.
Yep.
I turn it over to you. What should I do? And higher power says you got to abstain from this behavior 100%, right?
Well, and I think that in AA, right, it's I'm powerless over my addiction. And then the second step is believing that a power greater than yourself can actually help restore you to sanity. And then the third step is surrendering control of my life.
Okay, third step
to
third
that
step.
power. But
Right.
it's interesting, some of those steps that come before that, I think.
Yeah, I just looked them up. We admitted
But
we
you
were powerless.
think so? you go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was saying, just looked it up. It says we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. That's number one.
Okay.
That's the first.
So I've adopted it in this sense, though not I don't have a substance abuse issue, but I am powerless over my life.
Yeah, over.
I mean, and
Yeah.
and the attempts, it's not really my nature anyway, but the attempts to control my life don't work anyway.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it gives me great joy and satisfaction to say I could try to get on that earlier flight, but I ain't gonna do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a peace that comes with it, right?
there's a peace that transcends all understanding, right? It's like,
I feel
so
like I've read that somewhere.
that's right. Was it Philippians 4, 6, and 7?
Oh, could be.
Do not be anxious about anything, but in all situations through petition and prayer, giving thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the God that exceeds all, that transcends all understanding, will take that anxiety. I'm paraphrasing. Take that anxiety away from you, right? So, I mean, that kind of is the heart of it. If I just say, look, anxiety is a me thing. That's a control thing. I'm anxious. That's why I have compassion for a controller. I get it. He's anxious.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be that guy. He's anxious. So he thinks I have to try to do this. But it's not going to work, man. Don't be that way. Instead, pray, ask God, be thankful for it. Just lay it on his table and say, I can't do it. And this peace that transcends understanding, human understanding. We don't know why it works. But be like that dog sitting in the COT just waiting for a recognizable command. I will tell you when I want you to jump in the car, Spot. And if I haven't told you to jump in the car, don't jump in the car.
Sit there and wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I don't need to tell you where we're going. If I say jump in a car, jump in a car.
Yeah. Well, and isn't that so true, right? There just ain't no companion like a blue-eyed Merle.
There we go. I knew it was coming. It had to be somewhere in it. Yeah.
What is that?
That's Led Zeppelin.
Ain't no companion like a what?
A blue-eyed Merle.
A blue-eyed Merle.
The dog.
Merle.
It's
okay.
I don't know. Braun E.R. Stomp is the Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Braun Yauer.
Yeah.
It's
this blue-eyed.
This is really good stuff. Appreciate you guys. It's so interesting to kind of think. I have made this transition from controller to more of an adapter over the last, 8 or so years. But recognizing still in a season of chaos, but I don't feel the need to control it. It's kind of an interesting, I don't know how. So it's cool. And it's totally, I think, the evidence to me of God's faithfulness and just how he has done that, right? It's not, I haven't made that move because of all of my abilities to do that, right? It's because I've surrendered and allowed him to do it. It's been way easier.
You've recognized the exact inverse.
Yeah.
That anything is possible through him who gives you strength.
Yeah.
That's
right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
4:13. Exactly. Anything is possible. Anything. But the inverse, everything you try to do for yourself,
not
gonna work.
I appreciate you, fellas. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, man. You too.
Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heartbeat's the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah. Every man's got a story. We've been broken, we've been bruised, but we rise again and we don't get to choose. Through the fire, through the fight, every man's story burns in the night. Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. On a story to tell, from the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside, different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's have a story to tell, from the valley low to the mountaintop hill. Every man's got a story inside, standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah, every man's got a story. Every man's got a story. Voices rise like thunder, they roll. Truth in the pain, it's shaping the soul. Chains may rattle, but they break in time. Every man's story is yours and mine. From the struggle to the glory, every man's got a story. In the dark or in the light, we keep marching through the night. Every man's got a story inside. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop hill. Every man to the mountaintop